This is going to be some of a video put out today by A Plain Truth 15, who extensively covered the Paradise fires. I think he did a 100 video long series. So as we go through this, watch for the melted rims, melted glass, missing door handles, melted engine blocks, and notice that there is no foliage around these cars to burn. The heat did not get to the cars through the burning bushes next to them because there were none. The only other thing the normie would say is that it was the embers that blew in the wind. I'm not going to try and explain plasma fire to a newcomer. There will be a series of videos linked in the description for those who do not understand plasma fire when I use the word. Let's check this out. Missing door handles right there. Missing gas cap cover. Melted rims. Melted engine blocks. Missing glass, not a single piece of glass in any of the cars. All of them burnt equally. There are none that are half burned, or a quarter burned, or three-quarter burned. They're all burnt 100%. They all look identical. They have the rust color. Paint burned all the way off each and every one of them. But there's no trees or bushes around any of them to cause them to catch fire. Each one of these, according to the normie, caught fire because the embers that were blowing in the wind. So we're pretty late in the game for people to catch up if they don't have some sort of understanding. The tree burning on the inside from yesterday's video was all you need to see to know. Look at all the missing door handles. Not a single one still has door handles. Now we'll look at some burned boats a bit closer, but notice which direction the smoke is blowing here. Inland, toward the shore. You can see that by the pillar of smoke that's coming off of the burning boats. One here. And this might be attached to the land. That's like a dock. But the one over here is burning on fire in the water. And the embers are blowing that direction. The smoke is blowing that direction. So the fire would have had to come from over here in the water. So that tells you the embers blowing in the wind couldn't have caught that boat on fire because the wind is blowing the opposite direction and there was no fire upwind from that boat. There's some more burning boats on the water, though the picture's not too clear, so can't really make it out too much. Here we have more burning boats, but those were from the car fire in 2019, Lake Shasta. And notice the docks next to the boats are not burned. Neither is the shack over and to the left of the boats. We have the same thing happening in Hawaii right now. Boats that are on the water being burned, even though they're upwind from the fire, so embers blowing in the wind could not have caused it. Here we'll just go over some of the repetitive images that we've seen for the last 5 years as I've been covering this subject. Melted engine block, glass is missing. Door, the entire door on this is missing. We've seen that before, that's not the first time. Fire doesn't burn a whole door and then leave the rest of the car. Electricity-based plasma fire does that. The melted rims. Rims are gone, glass is gone. Door handle's gone, engine block melted. Door handles on all of them, missing. The identical repetitive burn pattern on all of them, like I said, none of them are burned halfway or a quarter way or three-quarter way. They're all burned completely, left with that white ash color. None of them have any black charcoal on them. and they all have their door handles missing. Fire does not burn that consistently. Fire burns one car and then... Anyway, I'm not going to explain how this isn't regular fire. If you're not aware, if you're not up to speed, I'll leave an extensive list of links in the description for you to educate yourself on what plasma fire is. There's a before and after of Lahaina. And people that are saying it looks like a war zone, like a bomb hit. Well, that's what I noticed too at the fire in Spanish Fort Canyon in 2018. That it looked more like a bomb exploded rather than a fire. The fact that they're all identically burn pattern, the missing glass, missing door handles, melted rims, rust color, 100% burned on all of them. None of them are partially burned. The repetitive pattern is just one of many patterns that proves to me this is plasma fire. The door cover where the gas cap is another thing that disappears along with the door handles. Oops. Here, you see that all the houses are burned to the ground and the trees in between are still standing. And the houses, just like the cars, are burned identically, 100% to a white powder ash. None of them have black charcoal, half-burned furniture, or a half-burned house, or a quarter-burned, or three-quarter burned. They're all 100%, and they look identical to the one on either side of them. Fire doesn't burn that consistently. And leave the trees in between the houses standing. There's another Lucky Larry Silverstein house right there. Just as we saw in other videos, in other plasma fires, where some houses seem to be protected. And there will be a video in the description that shows the close-up from the car that took this video and drove by the deceased, just like you saw a dog laying on the ground a minute ago with its paws up in the air. That's a human. And I don't want to show you, and it's not because, oh, your sensitivities, and I don't want to. No, it's because there is a blackout on the media. There is still 0 cell phone videos on YouTube of the fire in Maui. Only authoritative sources and accredited news outlets have posted videos on YouTube from the fires in Maui. Private citizens are being banned, and it's because they'll say it's too graphic of material or whatever. So because there is that policy in place right now, I don't want to play the video, but linked in the description will be the original video where they drive right by her and turn the camera as they drive by her to show it very clearly. And that begs the question, how did the dog end up deceased? How did she end up deceased? There's at least 36 other people that are part of the death toll. Some people are saying up to 100 or more. Maybe there was a lot of heart attacks. Might be a side note, but the percentage of people in Hawaii that took the magic potion is much higher than any other state in the United States. Because Hawaii was very strict about their mandates, and everyone there who lived that lifestyle wasn't willing to forfeit their lifestyle. I'm just going to go take it, roll up my sleeve, and get on with living my life. I would say 95% of the people there took it. Might be why there's increased heart attacks. Could have to do with the electromagnetic frequencies of these fires, or just the fear that was induced. Either way, a lot of those casualties may be heart attacks. And they are not showing the up-close detailed images. For example, this video, Hawaii Official, you can see on the thumbnail image they have those same cars, but you play the video and nowhere in that video do they show you these cars. So they are obscuring the details of what's happening here, only showing panned out images from far away of smoke clouds where you get a vague notion and an idea of what happened, but you don't get to see the details up close, lest people freak out and the herd stampede. So I understand why they're not engaging in full and open disclosure with the public. The public doesn't want to know, or they already would. The fact that they don't want to know shows they're in deep denial. Allow them to stay that way. That's the best policy. I fully understand why they are engaged in that. This is the only video. Anyway, there was very few. I think this might be the only one of the mainstream news outlets that are actually showing images like this. But look at these burning boats that we're about to see. Notice the one up close. The ones in the back, you can't tell, but those are all burning boats. This one is worth watching, and they do show images that are different than the last video we saw. The last video we saw was a guy riding a bike. You could tell by how the camera was moving down the road that the guy running the camera was riding a bicycle. Here, they're walking. So it's probably a different street and different cars, but they look exactly the same. And also, listen to how they tell you that all of a sudden, the fire was there and the 80-mile-an-hour winds showed up at the same time. They're associating that with a hurricane that is 875 miles away. Mr. MB3 did a video last night, and he went on Google Earth and put the line up there between Lahaina and the eye of the hurricane, and it was 875 miles. This wind picked up right as the fires came, and then I'm sure it's died back down. If these were associated with that hurricane, they would have already been blowing the wind for the last few days, and they would keep blowing for the next few days.
This is downtown Front Street. It's hard to even put into words.
Heartbreaking images coming from Maui's Lahaina.
It's like a war zone.
Everybody we know lost their homes. Every apartment.
We don't know anyone yet who kept their homes.
James and Tennille Brueggemann sent us this video showing the damage in Lahaina, burned out cars just left in the street.
But these cars are probably trying to get out of town, is my guess. And they did not make it.
Exactly like a war zone. People, dead people in the streets, dead animals in the streets, cars abandoned, everything burnt. Looks like it got bombed. It really does.
You actually saw bodies in the street?
Yes.
Oh my God.
But one person who did make it out is
their homes, hotel workers.
so many in this area still in a bit of shock over the extent of the damage.
We had no warning. It was barely even an announcement, and the next thing we know, the winds are gusting up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and there's fires popping everywhere. We had no warning. It was barely even an announcement, and then the next thing we know, the winds are gusting up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and there's fires popping everywhere. No warning. It was barely even an announcement, and then the next thing we know, the winds are gusting up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and there's fires popping everywhere.
Still in a bit of shock over the extent of the damage.
We had no warning. It was barely even an announcement, and then the next thing we know, the winds are gusting up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and there's fires popping everywhere.
Now, I often say that the word plasma fire does not define whether or not it's directed and intentional or naturally occurring process like geomagnetic induction. It's just the energy. But so in 95, 99% of my videos, it's just random trees and fence posts and shrubs out in the middle of nowhere, so it doesn't make sense to call it a directed energy attack. That's why I say 99% of what we're seeing is part of a natural phenomenon. The fluctuation in the magnetic field creates a surge of ground current. Maybe they were just test firing all those times in those 99% of the videos. This does seem to be an incident where it is highly likely that it was intentional. So, this guy says something that sparks my inner conspiracy theorist. He says most people don't know the fire started the night before, or at least a few hours earlier, so it diverted the resources elsewhere. You know, like in the old movies where there's only a few cops in the town and they want to do a bank robbery, so they commit some other kind of crime as a decoy and a diversion to draw the police away from the bank that they're about to rob.
With. What time did it start sweeping through? Would tourists have been there enjoying their night out as well as the locals?
A lot of people don't realize the fire actually started the day before. So when it sparked up again, there was minimal resources there because they were dealing with major fires on other parts of the island. It started later in the evening, right around, I believe, 4:30. And when the evening time finally came and sunset was at 7, the smoke was so acrid and dark you couldn't really see the sun set at all. And
in other reporting, this was on Maui. That's not the Big Island. And in a few of the reports I've heard from the official sources that there were also brush fires on the Big Island. And everything that I've covered in this video is really not necessary to be able to identify this as a plasma fire. Normies, when there's a tree burning on the inside like this, will say, well, lightning does that. That's what makes a tree burn on the inside is lightning. So the fire, the wildfire burned all the other trees, but this one lit up like lightning by lightning. Guaranteed there's many other trees around there that are hollow on the inside where they burned, just like this one. And it is lightning, underground lightning. Linked in the description will be many plasma fire videos for people that aren't familiar with the subject, along with the video by Jamie Lee of A Plain Truth 15, that he made, and he's well versed. However, he calls everything directed energy weapons, and I think there's a lot of geomagnetic induction going on here that's part of a natural cycle that is not directed, just because 99% of my hundreds of videos are just bushes and fence posts and trees where there is no apparent target to be attacked. But I do believe it's very apparent. You need look no further than the 5 Secret Service vehicles of Joe Biden that all got hit at the Hertz rental car company hours after he returned them to know that this same type of energy is directable. In 99% of my videos, it doesn't appear to be directed at anything in particular, but in some instances, and this appears to be one, it is directed. The 5 Secret Service vehicles of Joe Biden, there is no doubt, there is no argument to be made to say that that was not directed and intentional. All 5 of the rental vehicles that he rented lit up, melting the engine block, and only the engine block. It didn't burn the rest of the car, just the engine block. All 5 of his rental vehicles. He didn't rent 15 and 5 of the 15 lit up. He rented 5 and all 5 burned. And no other cars on the Hertz rental car lot burned. Only the 5 that the Secret Service rented and returned hours earlier. Therefore, there is no possibility that that was not directed and intentional. That one stands out amongst all others as proof that this type of energy can be directed. That video will also be linked in the description for those that aren't familiar with it already. Here's another example of doors being burned off of a vehicle, though this was not part of the Secret Service rental. 5 vehicles. This is included in the same video that happened at a Coke plant. My point is, this type of energy is directable. This is the Boston 10 News. Car fire at Nantucket Airport was in vehicles rented by the Secret Service. You can see the video for further details. So this specific fire should put to rest anyone that says directed energy is a conspiracy theory, and people who think places like Paradise, California, or Maui have been attacked by such energy are just loons. This specific fire puts that argument to bed. There is no case to be made that this was not directed. It was only reported on for one day and there was no follow-up coverage. They buried it. So, once you know with 100% certainty that this type of energy can be directed, which we now know from those 5 Secret Service vehicles, it does call into question any and all other fires that bear a similar resemblance, which all of those cars do bear the resemblance and show the burn patterns of this energy that I call plasma fire, which is the Earth's electrical grid. There is a magnetic field around the Earth, and wherever there's any electrical field, there's always a magnetic field, and wherever there's a magnetic field, there's also an electrical energy offset by 90 degrees and proportionate to the magnetic or electrical field that it accompanies. This energy, when it's directed, is drawn right from the Earth's magnetic field. Also, excuse me, I believe due to the weakening magnetic field, the magnetic field fluctuates and creates surges of ground current that are not intentional and directed. It is the same energy. In some cases, it can be harnessed and directed and weaponized. In 99% of my videos, it does not appear to be directed at anything and just springing up wherever it happens to spring up. And that's why I say, when I use this term I made up called plasma fire, it is not differentiating or defining whether or not that plasma fire was directed or something that was non-directed and unintentional. Either way, the energy reveals itself in the burn patterns that it leaves behind in exactly the same way, whether or not they're intentional. The 5 Secret Service vehicles, that was intentional, but it shows you the burn patterns, and then when you see them elsewhere, you know it is capable of being directed and weaponized.